Stinger for cardrunners.com. I'm doing a Pot-Limit Omaha video, and Pot-Limit Omaha is a rapidly growing game that many players still do not know how to play very well yet. No limit hold'em games have come along so far in the last few years that oftentimes you'll find that even as low as like 50 cent, $1 no limit the blinds, the games have gotten pretty tough. But in Pot-Limit Omaha, games are often still pretty juicy, so that's why I decided to learn Omaha, and I'm definitely glad I did. It's been very profitable for me, and if you learn, it can be too. So I'm going to try to tell you some of the basics here. First thing you need to know is that Omaha is a game that's largely about position. Position is very important in No Limit Hold'em also, but even more so in Omaha. Position is possibly the most important thing. Like, oftentimes I'd rather just have four really raggedy cards in position than like ace ace XX out of position. So as a function of that, I play very loosely on the button and in the cutoff, and very tightly like out of the blinds, and fairly tight in the early positions too. So now this hand is a little too weak to play. Now, if this hand was double suited, or even maybe if it was like the jack and something else suited, I might even raise that up, just because my position can help me make better decisions after the flop than my opponents, and it is a huge advantage. But that hand is just a little bit too weak to play. And so far, seeing a couple of limp multi-way pots, sign that my opponents aren't too aggressive. I'm just checking around. Basically, with 4 people in the pot here, I would need an 8 or better to bet out, just because in Omaha there's just such a good chance that somebody has it. It's usually not worth bluffing in a spot like this. Alright, not a super strong hand. I do have a fairly good position though, and my opponents seem pretty passive. So I'm gonna make a pretty loose raise here. On the button, I think I'd definitely raise this. The cutoff, it's fairly loose, and unfortunately I got called by the button, which is not what I wanted. That's a fairly innocuous flop, so I think I can often take down with the flop bet. I'm gonna bet close to the size of the pot, and he calls, and it's kind of a scary board, and I don't know how he plays yet, so I'm just gonna give the hand up. If I know my opponent's calling with any overpair there, I might fire a second barrel sometimes. But yeah, I check and he bets full pot, so fairly confident. He has at the very least a straight, if not a full house. So obviously he's gonna fold. And if I had an overpair, I'd do the exact same thing there. An overpair doesn't really have any value on that board. I'd have to put him on total air to call, and on that board it's just not very likely. So now we're gonna have a nice little family pot here. I'm the only one that didn't play it. And again, like a flop like this with 5 people in the pot, like, I'm really only betting this board with either the made straight or like a hand like King Queen Jack. I can improve to a made straight and has good equity against a made straight. Even with a set, I'd usually play this flop fairly cautiously. If you bet a set and get raised, you basically have to throw your hand away because the odds are you're beat. So, no, fairly tame action so far. Turn did change things a bit though. Queen 10, 10, 9. I'm just gonna fold this under the gun because again, bad position. If I was on the button or probably in the cutoff, I'd open that. Also, it didn't have any suits, and suits are very important in Omaha. It's much better to have the nut draw in a suit, ace X of whatever suit, but just having a suit is really huge. Like, say I flop a straight with that hand, Queen 10, 10, 9. So the flop comes 8, 7, 6, and I get in with somebody else that has 10, 9. If I flop a flush draw, then I have a huge edge in the hand. I'm free rolling to win the hand, and that happens in Omaha a lot more often than beginning players would think. There's a big pot. Wow. Possum got his money in really loose there. Actually, they both kind of did. Wow. Dizzy VD. There. I'll bring this hand up to illustrate. So, Dizzy VD 4-bet pre-flop with King, Queen, Queen 4. That is very, very loose. I really would very rarely 4-bet with a hand like that because then if the other player does happen to wake up with aces or kings, he's in big, big trouble. Although his hand was double suited and better than average, just queen, queen hand. But still, it's very loose, and oftentimes he's just going to be getting a bunch of money in behind. So I don't really like that play. And then if I'm in Possum's spot, here, I'll go back to this in a second. Now, Possum has an ace and a king in his hand. And when Dizzy VD 4-bets, most of the time he's going to have aces or kings. Usually aces. I mean, it's kind of rare to even see people 4-bet with kings, which is why I was surprised about the queens. But that means one of his cards is dead. So even though he's double suited and all, I'd probably just fold that hand pre-flop once he gets 4-bet. As played on the flop, he's getting pretty good odds, and he flopped a pair. His flop call is actually correct. But yeah, I think both players play that hand very loosely, and that's just what I was saying at the beginning. Pot-Limit Omaha games are often very juicy. I'm not saying either of these players are horrible, but that's some very loose action they gave there, and it's just like if you play a good solid Omaha game, you'll be able to exploit plays like that and make money in the long run. Whereas in Hold'em, there's not really people making too many very, very like loose plays that are probably unprofitable. Now, Dizzy VD's 4-bet could possibly be a good play if they have some history, like Possum just like frequently 3-bets. Like there's one hand I played in a Card Runners video where I actually 4-bet pre-flop with like ace, king, queen 7 or something of that nature after I raised under the gun because the guy who was 3-betting me was just like out to get me and re-raising every hand. Alright, I have 4 diamonds here, which is kind of a downer. Otherwise, this would be a fairly good hand. I guess I'm just gonna fold it. With all these limpers especially. If there's like one limper, I might just like pot it and try to get it heads up and try to win the pot on the flop, but I'm probably just gonna get a bunch of callers with a pretty weak hand. Alright, so now, again, not a great hand, but it's not bad, and I have position, so I'm going to make a raise and try to isolate heads up with position, although, again, I get called by the button, which is not what I want. But I do flop a pair, or two pair, actually, well, bottom two, as well as a straight draw. Now, there are couple of things I could do with this. I could just bet it out, but if I get raised, it's kind of a sticky situation. So I'm just going to check and play for pot control here. Alright, so now I'm fairly certain if I bet this turn, I'm not going to get raised. So I'm going to bet close to pot. Like, if somebody had the nuts, they probably would have bet by now, and without the nuts, it's going to be tough to raise. So at the very least, I'm going to get to see a river card. It's kind of like a combo bet. Like, I may or may not have the best hand, but if somebody has like queens and sevens, it's almost an impossible spot to call. So I'm kind of making that bet kind of for value, but also to fold out some mediocre made hands, and then if I get called, I still have the straight outs as well. Alright, so now Blizzardfish making a small bet there, and that can mean different things in Omaha. Like, from some players, like the trickier types, often they'll make those small bets hoping to get raised, and then they can jam a bunch of money in. Alright, I'm under the gun here, but I have a fairly strong hand. I'm going to raise. But at that time, it's just a true blocking bet, and he gets raised and folds quick. Alright, I'm actually going to call the video quits after this hand. Now I get re-raised by the button, who's a pretty aggressive player. And a call. Interesting spot with this hand. I think I'm going to see a flop. It's probably going to end up being 5 ways or so. I'd rather not have the ace in my hand, but my hand has some potential. And for those of you who like to gamble, this is another reason to play Omaha. Look, we have about a stack in the pot pre-flop. Now, kind of unfortunate that the wrong flush draw flopped here. So I flopped a wrap draw, which means like a multi-way straight draw. So now an ace, jack, 10, or 9 would give me a straight. Problem is, there's a flush draw out there. So if any of those cards hit and they're a spade, I'm very highly unlikely to still have the best hand. So because that flush draw is out there, I have to fold. Would have been great to see that flop with 2 clubs or 2 hearts, but as played, I can't really call. So yeah, I'm just gonna fold my hand. Unfortunate, but I'd be getting my money in very nicely if those 2 spades were in my suit instead. So, alright, well, just a couple basic concepts there. Pot-Limit Omaha. You should pick it up. It's a fun game. This is Stinger.